What is going on today, guys? It is a beautiful Sunday today. Weather is nice outside, it's sunny. I am off today in my shop, not working on nothing. I figured I would come down here. I've had a few people that have asked me what they need to get started in taxidermy. So I thought I'd just make a short video and explain a few things that you have to get started. And then some things that as you get going, if it's something you decide that you like doing, that you may want to add to your collection to make things a little bit easier. All right, number one, go and buy you a mounting stand. That right there, essential. First year I ever mounted, screwed it to a pallet and leaned it up against this table, and it was an absolute disaster. I mean, I got it done, but I would not recommend it. Buy you one of those. You're gonna need a fleshing beam. That right there, I made that out of a piece of cedar. Works just fine. You can make you one. Ain't like you gotta buy a fleshing beam. A lot cheaper to make your own. You will have to have that. Get you some ear turners. Those right there are essential. They don't cost much, but you're gonna have that to turn your ears inside out and remove the cartilage. Even if you do not remove the cartilage and use Bondo, you still have got to turn those ears to get your deer tanned. Now, next, epoxy. I use Apoxie sculpt, 2-part epoxy. You're gonna have that. Pack your deer, finish your deer. Do what you gotta do before you paint it. Paint, and more paint. Really doesn't matter what kind you use. I use water-based with an airbrush. When I first got started, I used a paintbrush and acrylics. And all you're doing is putting color on a deer's face. So to get started, if you just want to mount one of your own, just get some of your old paints sitting around the house somewhere, mix them up, and make them work. Because anything will work just fine. Power tools. You're going to need a drill and a driver. I've got one of both down here, that way I ain't got to swap back and forth, but you're going to need a drill bit, drill through those antlers, get them set to where you put screws in them, and you're going to have I like to use an impact driver to actually put the screws in the antlers and to screw to the mount before I get ready to mount my deer heads. Knives, scalpels, those kind of tools, y'all can see pretty much what I use. These tucking tools right here, you can buy these at Hobby Lobby. They come in a pack all together. This one right here is the one that I use more than anything. I can use this one in place of all of them if I have to. You're going to need a cape needle. This one I use right there. It's the biggest cape needle that McKenzie Taxidermy Supply has got. I want to say that it's 2-inch. It may actually be a 3-inch cape needle, but it's an L-shaped cape needle. It's my favorite kind. Cuts really well. Wire brush. Good for grooming, removing paint. Needle nose pliers. Come in handy with everything. A hammer. Just because something might make you mad, you may want to hit it with a hammer. Butcher steel. I use that to sharpen my scalpels and my knives. Fleshing cone. You're going to need that. This right here is nothing but an axe handle. You can buy a fleshing cone or you can use an old axe handle, whatever. It's just got to be able to fit in the nostrils of a deer, fit in the eyes. That way you can flesh everything out correctly. And of course, knives. You're going to need modeling clay. This right here is just regular moist pottery clay. Pretty cheap. It's a lot cheaper if you buy it in the big box like that, 25 pounds at a time. You're going to need hide paste to glue him up. And you're going to need acid. And you're going to need tanning oil. That's assuming you're going to tan your own deer. You can send it off and have it tanned. Fine. Whatever. It's not too hard to tan it yourself. But if you're going to do that too, you're going to need salt. It's quick dissolve pool salt. You're going to need baking soda to neutralize that acid when you're doing your tan. I also have got cape frames. Something else, doing it the way that I do it is going to be a necessity. I don't like to leave my capes laying on the table to drain, even though that's what they require. In a lot of places, I just don't like it. You're going to need tubs, plastic tubs, to pickle your deer hide. A saw, some kind of a saw. I've actually got this professional bone saw, hand saw. It is fantastic for trimming skull caps to fit them onto your form. I actually use a Sawzall to cut my horns off a deer when I cape it. But that handsaw right there will do the job. Okay, that's basically all you're going to need to mount a deer. Now let's go through some things that you're going to want eventually, because you're going to get mad trying to do it without, this stuff. Respirator. You're going to want to use that when you're spraying your paint. I don't know that it's a 100% necessity with water-based paint, but I'm not going to paint without it. Gloves. Definitely wear gloves when you're doing your tan. You can brush the tan on if you want. Don't have to use your hands. But somehow the tan is going to get on you. As you're pouring it out, putting the lid on something, and you do not want it on your skin. It will absolutely tan your fingers. Make sure you got some garbage bags handy. There's always something to be thrown away that you're cutting off of this junk. You'll end up with a pile of mess before you even realize it. What I do with my salt, 5-gallon bucket. It's got the waterproof lid, seal on it. Well, I can put a bag of that salt, will fit in here at a time. You can close that lid, it'll keep moisture out of it. You can scoop out what you need. These aluminum scoops right here, you can buy for little or nothing. You get one of those for your salt. A cape stretcher. That right there is a homemade cape stretcher made out of pipe and a card jack. You're going to want a cape stretcher eventually to be able to stretch the capes back to the original size that they were when the deer was killed. You want to measure the deer right when you cape them so you can get them right back to the same size they were originally. Very important. You don't want to give somebody back a tiny little deer head when they done killed a monster. They're going to get really mad at you. Obviously, hardware. Something I didn't mention before, you're going to need screws. You're going to need screws. If you're going to screw the antlers to a deer, you're going to need screws. So go ahead and add that to your list. Dehumidifier. That right there, in my shop, is one of the most important things I believe I've got. I don't run air conditioner stuff down here. And without a dehumidifier, if it gets the humidity level gets too bad in here, you'll end up with mold, mildew, your deer won't dry. It's just a disaster. That right there is a game changer. Mod Podge. That right there can be used to do nose texture on a deer. You can also mix it half and half with water to use as a sealer. Salon Care 40 volume peroxide and bleach white. That right there is how I whiten my skulls. So if you're going to do European mounts, you're going to need some of that. If you're going to do it the way that I do it, you can check one of my other videos where I actually show how I whiten my skulls, and we'll go through that. I don't know if y'all are going to be doing any pack mounts similar to this right here, but with all of that comes a whole new list of stuff. I mean, you're going to have rope. You're going to have the wood. I actually use furring strips on that. It's very cheap. Put the thing together myself. Just make it myself. And wood stain. I like to wood stain with sponge brushes and gloves. It's a little bit easier than brushing it on. You're also going to need some saran wrap. I've actually got an old meat wrapping station right here with a big roll of film on it. That film right there is what I use to wrap my skulls in while they're sitting with the peroxide and the bleach white powder on them. Helps that stuff absorb because they won't dry out. The first few deer that I did, I actually cut the mouth out with a flathead screwdriver and a rasp, which was horrible. So, get you a Dremel tool. That little cutting tip right there will eat up a foam form. It's the way to go. It's a whole lot faster. Obviously, air compressor for your airbrush if you decide to get you an airbrush. Borax. Y'all get y'all some borax. What I do with it, I've got one of these little old foam coolers. I just dump me some borax in there, keep it in there all the time. whenever you cut your skull caps off of your deer, you'll take you a little bit of borax, put on that skull cap, it'll dry that sucker up. You ain't got to worry about bugs getting in it. You ain't got to worry about smell. You ain't got to worry about nothing. It'll fix that in just a few minutes. Okay, now that you basically know what you're going to need to mount a deer up, I want to show y'all a few little tricks, little stuff that I do down here just to save a little bit of time and to make my life a little bit better. Let's see, number one, this rope right here. I use this different things, wrapping antler bases and stuff. It's jute, regular jute rope. The way that they pack this stuff, you can pull it straight out of the middle and it'll just unwind, come right out of there. But these 1 gallon buckets, it fits perfectly down inside. You can hang it up, pull out how much rope you need, and it doesn't get all over your room, get unwound and get in a whole bunch of knots. I'd also suggest putting you up some pegboard where you can hang all your stuff, your tape, where you can measure your neck, something else that you're going to need to do taxidermy. Be able to measure your neck on your deer to order your forms. I hang my saws and stuff. I've even got labels up here for when I do my own deer process and I can label my meat. But these roll around tool chests, y'all have probably seen this in some of my videos. These things are cheap, especially if you don't get the top part that goes on it, just this little bottom cabinet. This is a 5 drawer, doesn't cost very much, but I can put all of my small tools, my paints, I've got all my staples, glue, pins, nails, hardware. I mean, all of that kind of stuff just fits right there. The thing rolls around, so if I decide to wash my floor or anything I need to do, I can roll it out of the way. Something I've learned on my skulls, if you're going to use cold water maceration, I use ear tags. Ear tags that you use for cattle. The good thing about that is you can use zip ties to put those around your deer antlers. You can submerge them in water and they will not fade. You don't have to worry about tags that will get wet and fall apart, so you won't lose your numbers. You can actually have your numbers on there. Those things cost a little bit, but they'll last you from now on. I've had things for years, and a great way to keep up with the numbers. Plus, you can buy them in numerical order. They make them just, I think there's 25 in a pack, like 1 through 25, and then 26 through 50, and so on and so forth. So you can just continue to buy them for however many deer you're going to be doing a year. Build you something to hang your racks on. Like when you start getting in racks, if you decide to start your own taxidermy business, you start getting racks, you're going to want somewhere that you can hang them all up. I've got 4 right here where I can actually keep them in order that I got them, keep them numbered, and I keep them in numerical order on this rack. Gonna need some freezers, just in case you actually have to freeze deer hides. Hopefully that's the case if you try to go into business for yourself. I use Gorilla, the super glue gel, when I'm gluing in my teeth, my nose bones, stuff like that on my skulls before I get them completely finished. I like to glue that stuff in, make sure they ain't gonna fall out, go anywhere. If you'll take a little cup, I use one of my Apoxie sculpts, the empty bottles, turn that upside down. The ones that you've already opened, turn it upside down and set it in that right there. It will always be ready to use. You won't have to worry about shaking it, beating it on the table, trying to get it to where you can make it come back out again. Makes it a whole lot easier. Something else I do, take your modeling clay. Before I use this, I'll take it and I'll flip it upside down. If you'll do that right there, all the moisture goes to the bottom. See how easy that is to mash? The moisture will go to the bottom of that as it's sitting. The top will be harder and more dry. So every day when you get done, if you'll flip it upside down, it will continue to keep that moisture circulated in that box, and it will keep your clay way more evenly distributed with water. That way you don't end up with dry spots in it, hard spots, where it doesn't want to stick correctly. Milk crates. Got these 2 milk crates. I've also got some of these baskets that actually go in a freezer. I use those to set on top of my capes while they're sitting in my pickle. It holds the capes where they're just submerged underwater. They're not heavy enough to compress the cape into the bottom. It still can get some circulation, but it keeps it from floating on top of the water and have spots that's not touching that pickle, which is going to cause you to have a raw hide, which you don't want. Get you some Dawn dishwashing liquid. When you go to clean up your shop, keep the shop clean. I mean, it's a taxidermy shop, so it's always going to be kind of nasty. But that right there kills bacteria. Bacteria kills deer hides. It will make your hair fall out of your deer hides. You do not want that. So if you keep your tables washed down, anywhere that your deer is going to be making contact with your equipment, use that Dawn when you get done working. Hose everything down, put the Dawn on it, spray it, get it sudded up real good. Let it sit for a little while, do its job, spray everything out. It also smells great. So it'll help, you know, deodorize the place too, but it will also keep you bacteria free, which is going to protect the fur on those mounts. You know, once you've got all that, I mean, all that you're really going to need is 2 hands. You're going to need some ears. You're going to need some eyeballs. You're going to need some deer forms. And you're going to need a place to hang all that junk up. After that, all you got to do is get some customers. So guys, appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. It's been a fun video to make. Hope this helps somebody. Gives y'all some ideas to go out and mount a deer head. So anyway, y'all subscribe if you hadn't already. We'll see y'all next time.